Thank you all the participants that participated in that section. I think it's really eye-opening to really sit and listen to how deals really get done. And hopefully what you can do is take that back and utilize those strategies within your own economic development group and be able to utilize our services as well. We are approaching about 10 million in our loan portfolio right now, all across the region. So we've got loans in almost every county. Real excited about hopefully expanding that in the future. Next up is housing. We're going to have Randy Speaker joined us with the Innovation Center in 2003. I was joking with him when he would come out when he was with Commerce on a tour, and I said, "Would you ever come to work for us?" And then he kind of shrugged his shoulders, and I said, "No, really, would you ever come to work for us?" And then, what was it, a month and a half later, 2 months later, we were in the LG's office telling me that you're going to go to work for us. He's our first regional housing specialist. He previously served as a housing specialist for Department of Commerce. His work involved collaborating with various organizations to ensure availability of quality, affordable housing across campus. Originally from Leavenworth, outside the wall, Randy holds a bachelor degree in business administration from Washburn University. Caden Piper joined the Innovation Center in 2004 as our regional housing planner after graduating from Kansas State University with a master's in regional and community planning. He returned to his hometown in Russell and research reflects his passion for rural community preservation. As the rural housing planner, Caden specializes in helping communities identify their specific housing needs and implement those local plans into action. And I have one more story about Caden, well, two. Caden started as an intern for us doing research before he graduated. We were able to develop a relationship with him and was able to have him come on and be an employee. And also, Caden just got married a few months ago, so.
Well, thank you, Scott. And for those of you that I've not had the opportunity to meet, most of what Scott said about us is a lie. And I do need to add one thing to Caden. He racked up a whopping 90 victories in Russell on the wrestling team, so now he's our security guy. Don't laugh at my jokes, you could be escorted. But anyway, no, it's great to have Caden on our team. So at the Innovation Center, what we focus on is identifying resources, planning, and housing strategies. And that, in a nutshell, is what we do. Before I get started, I would like to have a couple of people stand up because you're going to see some of the work that they did in the presentation. Vernon, he's on our loan review committee, our chairman. Sandy, she's one of our more vocal and you know, Sandy, I had to do that.
I know.
But anyway, yeah, so we're going to talk about three things today. First, we're going to talk about the Kansas Housing Cooperative Program. We're going to talk about tools of the trade for housing development. And then finally, the third thing, we're going to get our crystal ball out and kind of look into the future for housing and home ownership. So, and by the way, when you are doing your evaluations of the presenters, remember which presenter got you out early so you could go to dinner. The forgivable loans are the backbone to our program. There's no interest, no payments required. It does require 5 years consecutive occupancy as your primary residence. So that's kind of everything else builds around that. And then the loan is forgiven after the resident has moved in and lived there for a year, then 1/5 is forgiven. A 1099 is filed, and you go to the next year, and then the next next, and next, and next. So it'll be totally, if you stay there for the full 5 years. It's only new construction. We get a lot of requests for rehab, but new construction is what this program is about. And we do single-family homes and duplexes. And also, it's limited to communities under 10,000 population. We do have some guide rails. The land cannot be any more than 5 acres. Now, it can go up to 10 if there's a letter from the county saying that you have to, because of laterals, you have to have more land for the home site. Generally, 5 acres takes care of it. Love barn dominiums, but we cannot. Vernon's chuckling, yeah. We've had a lot of discussions about that, mostly led by Sandy. They, the barn dominiums, they're just out of our purview. We have to stay to the residential structures, because it gets too difficult, and they also have trouble sometimes, unless they have sufficient assets, to finance them. 3,000 square foot maximum. We do not have any income limits. This is the limit that we use, and you'll see why in a little bit. The subsidy maximum is 17% of the development cost. It also, there's 55,000 ceiling for single-family homes and a 50,000 ceiling for the duplex units. The resources come in 3 stages. The Hansen Foundation is one of those stages, and they provide a third of the funds as cash for the down payment assistance. The state of Kansas, through the Kansas Department of Commerce, provides additional cash for it. And then we have a very important, which many of you play a critical role in, and that is coming up with the local match. Now, one of the things when we designed this program, we wanted to have it established that it was easy to use. So we have a 1-page application to start the process. And I know the Lieutenant Governor was envious of that, because of all the applications they have in Commerce. So a 1-page application. We also are very flexible on the community match, and I'll go over a couple of ways in a little bit that we go through. The goals were very simple. We know how important home ownership is, and we wanted to support that, the financial independence aspect. We also, in many of the rural communities, we have appraisal gaps. In other words, that's where the cost of the building the new home is not appraised because there's no comparables typically. And we just got one back last Friday that was $65,000 off. And so again, there's a big gap there. Probably one of the biggest purposes of this program is to help solidify and contribute to the local tax base. The best way to add to the tax base is with long-term assets, and housing is exactly that. We also want to promote family values. We've got several situations where people are coming back to the family farm, and that's a concept that we've embraced. In 2025, our first year, we had 44 closings, and we felt very excellent about that. Something I said, Scott? And we had one closing or at least one application in process in every county of the 26 counties in 2025. Now, Caden kind of shocked me a little bit. He told me that we now have 56 in process applications. Now, do not let the rumors get started that we're out of money. We're not. We've got enough for another 120, 130 homes. So we've got plenty of money to work with. We added $16 million to the local tax base. That was one of the things we felt the best about. And our return on investment exceeds 600%. Here's a map of the 26 counties, and you can see, for some reason, Grinnell had a real housing issue. It's amazing what a tornado will do to your policies, but we were able to help 7 homes in families who, I mean, I've been around a lot of tornadoes in Kansas, the devastation, and that was the most severe one from the standpoint, everything on the west side of the street was gone, literally gone, and except for some foundations. And but anyway, so and you can see we do have several in a lot of places. Down there in Wallace County, we have one. So and also then, like I said, we've got 56 in the process. So we're going to be filling in a lot of these counties here as these close. We closed one in January. Now this month we've now closed 9. So we're picking up and for the springtime. Average subsidy that we provided in cash was around $38,000. Average square foot per home, 1813. And unfortunately, $210 is what the average cost of the homes. Remember the day. Some of the tools of the trade. I know tomorrow there will be a lady talking about their neighborhood revitalization program. This is a very important tool with our program because this covers the local match generally. If it's at least 5 years and at least 75%, then it generally will cover that. But that's a great tool. So encourage your elected officials to continue that and even enhance them to higher percentages and more years. It's a tremendous tool. Also, for infrastructure, one of the things that we help communities with is the RHID process, the Reinvestment Housing Incentive District, which works off of the net tax base and allows for infrastructure to be put in, which often covers about 15 to 25% of the cost. Also, we work closely with KHRC and USDA Rural Development for their resources to try to help bring them to the table. Also, Fannie Mae now is starting to recognize rural communities and do some additional internal work to try to address, number one, the appraisal gaps, and number two, just the overall understanding of rural communities and how they're a little bit unique compared to urban. And the reason that's important to hear from Fannie Mae is because they buy the mortgages. And so the banks prefer generally to sell them on the secondary market if they can, rather than keep them as portfolio loans. We have an economic impact analysis that we offer, and we can help you show your elected officials what the return on investment would be if they implement an NRP or an RHID. And if we can show them how much money will be coming to the school districts, and it's a really tremendous tool. So if you need that sometime, don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll certainly get that activated.
Well, I want to point out that Scott made a little comment. I don't know if anybody else caught it, but Scott said that I joined the Innovation Center in 2004. And I like to say that he sniped me out of college, but I don't think he got me quite that early.
Were you alive in 2000?
I was, but I was 4. Just giving you help. I like to say that I'm the housing assessment tool guy. Some of you probably heard this speech about a dozen of times. I apologize in advance. If you have not heard me talk about this, consider this your first lesson. The housing assessment tool is pretty cool. What it does is it's a self-action document that allows a community to put together some kind of housing plan themselves without requiring them to go to a third party and create it for them. And what that does, it allows them to individually look at their individual housing stock, determine need, and lastly, put together a housing plan based off those criteria. So why exactly is this important? Well, first, it allows you to establish housing priorities. And I know we come from some very rural communities, and I know we want wholesale, we want more development, period. And while that's a good idea, establishing priorities allows you to determine which housing is most necessary in your community. We will get into why that's so impactful here in a little bit, But for now, consider that as a core element part of this tool. The next, it improves competitiveness for funding. There's several programs across the state that actually require that you have some kind of housing assessment up to date in order to apply for those grants. And so it's necessary to have that. And next, it connects housing planning to economic growth. As you know, housing is one of the most foundational pieces into improving the tax base for the community. So by directly working with those that are involved with economic development, you're helping them by also pushing forward housing initiatives. Lastly, it creates a shared understanding of the housing conditions. Because it's such a collaborative process, it allows more community members to understand what exactly our need and our priority is with our housing initiative. The process is pretty simple. It's a 4-stage process. The first part is the organization of community members. This one is actually the ones that is most often missed during the process. Deb Mankler, where are you at?
Right here.
It kind of sucks when you're doing it by yourself, doesn't it?
What, the half?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot of them.
Yeah.
I think I'm on my 10th one. They're not extremely fun, but they, you know.
Absolutely.
I'm learning.
Absolutely. So whenever you can avoid that and get more community members on board with that process, it alleviates a lot of the minutia going through that, because more community members are able to spread out the requirements for the program. Next, you're able to assess by reviewing core data that you go online and find, or just going out and asking people in the community that are knowledgeable on the subject, what exactly is going on in the community that requires our individual attention. The third step is engage, and really I call this community lore, because it requires you to go out into the community individually, ask these people, whether it's bankers, whether it's homeowners or employers, what exactly is the need for our community? What exactly are the targets that we need to hit in order to meet certain objectives? And the last step in the process is, how do we put all of this information together and put together a comprehensive plan that engages housing in our community and engages the people into want to start developing housing in the community. In 2025, we actually completed 6 new housing assessments across the region. What that does is it creates an opportunity for those people to, now that they have the plan, now they can go out and start making targeted approaches into what housing needs they need, what housing needs they have to fill in order to accomplish their goals. In 2024, we started a pilot program for something we call the Lifeline Market Analysis. And what this is it's an expansion upon the housing assessment document. And what it does is it looks individually at the employment data in the area. What we typically determine is there's about 5 to 6 major employers in your city or your community that make up the largest base of your employment. And the concern is always, if that business were to take up shop and move to another community, that would hurt a large number of employees in that community. And so by looking at local wage data and total housing costs, we're able to identify the affordability gaps with those employees. I'm going to give you a quick example here with the Lifeline Market Assessment document that we created as an add-on for the hat. An individual that makes $60,000 annually can reasonably afford $1,500 per month on housing expenses. Now I want to go back and I want to mention why it's important to create strategic housing opportunities and prioritize certain housing over another. If $1,500 is the gross income they have per month to be able to spend on housing expenses, and all the housing opportunities that are available to them are above that, which the range is typically 30 to 35% of gross income, they will no longer be able to afford that, and they will start considering other opportunities. And what that does is it individually disgruntles that person because they don't have the housing opportunity that they wanted. It disgruntles the employer because that could be a person that skips town, that they no longer have that employee available to them. And it also disgruntles the community because that could be a teacher, that could be a nurse, that could be a doctor a vital position in the community that's no longer filled. The process, another pretty simple one. It's if you remember stage 3 on the community, on the HAP document, it talks about engaging the community. In that part of the process, we ask them to take that step further and just go ahead and ask the employers what specifically in each position, what their wages, how many vacancies you have at that position, how many you expect to fill if you expanded. And what that does is it gives us a pretty good framework for what you're wanting to accomplish as an employer, and then apply it to what the HAT standards are. In 2025, since we fully launched it last year, we successfully launched 7 Lifeline markets as add-ons for HATs. And looking at, since we started targeting the HATs in 2023, when I was an intern, up until today, you can see that we've accomplished several housing assessments and lifelines across the region. We're continuing to target them today. And we'll transition back in. Oh, before I forget, something that's not on the slide, but we want to make available to everybody else here. We do have a technical assistance program that we do offer for community members. We understand that sometimes in your rural communities, there may not be one individual that has all the expertise in order to lead a housing committee, in order to do the housing assessment. So what we have available is technical assistance dollars that are made available to the community. And so you can hire a consultant from outside of the community to help you get engaged inside the process.
With Kansas Housing Cooperative Program, like I mentioned earlier, we have plenty of funds, so we're going to be cranking just as much as people have the applications. We do have a 3-stage process. The first is the threshold stage, that's the 1-page application. We then have a conditional stage where more detailed information is provided, and then the final stage where we reserve the funds. So it will continue. We're looking towards exploring, providing some rehab funds. We know that every community has a tremendous need where they have some older structures that probably need $50,000 to $75,000. We're not talking about just paint. We're talking about replacing a roof, replacing several. So stay tuned. We're working on a process of where we will have participation loans with other lenders. Also, we're working on some soft financing for multifamily. Now, when you're talking about multifamily, that's typically 5 units and higher, compared to a single duplex, triplex, fourplex. So stay tuned again for that. Also, we're exploring CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution certification, where we would be certified to receive some federal funds for not only housing, but also for business development. Home ownership. According to the Wall Street Journal, and this is a couple things that are kind of, I think, sneaking up on us. We don't really see them happen all of a sudden, but they're indicators of some issues we're going to be faced with in the near future. Yeah, so the average annual income required in 2021 was $79,000. In 2025, $127,000. That's 48,000. I think that's right. Isn't that right, Monty? 48,000. You know, change in income that was required. For somebody. Average first-time home buyer. Does anybody want to guess what the average is? It was 30. 3 years of age, now it's 40. And in other words, people are being, remember that $210 figure? The result is people are being priced out of the market, which makes our program even that more important. Because without that program, there's several houses that would not have been built. We also see a trend where we've got the single household breadwinner is not around. And mostly what we see is both husband and wife being being gainfully employed in order to afford the new construction.
My name is Kendall Cooper. I've been in this community for 57 years.
I am Jackie Cooper. I have lived in Goodland all my life. Kendall and I have been married for 40 years. And I own the Hallmark store downtown Goodland, and I've had that for 25 years.
I've been in the rental business probably for 32 years. We would like to continue doing it, and the Innovation Center here has made us take another step towards doing that. We've always been short of housing. There for a while, I think we were tearing down more houses than were being built. Now is the time to start with this innovation. People can start building again and building up the community. For housing, we have the Northwest Kansas vocational school here. We do cater to a lot of those kids. Housing is always needed.
Our first contact with the Innovation Center was we received Randy Speaker's name, and so we contacted him, and everything just took off from there.
Well, there's always a risk when you invest a lot of money like this. We were on the line of whether to do it or not, but with this Innovation Center grant, it made us feel comfortable. We're doing it for the community and for the future of our kids as well, that they can carry it on and keep building Goodland. The whole process has been just positive. They helped us all the way through the project. Not only Randy, but all his staff. It never gave us any pause whatsoever in this project once we started working. With the Innovation Center helping to build at this point, best opportunity you could ever have is to come and be involved with this.
My name is Nick Rhodes. I'm a real estate broker and owner of Wildlife Properties Land Company. I've been selling real estate in North Central Kansas for about 15 years. And when I first started out our career, it was a lot of people just moving out of the communities. Kids would grow up, they would go to college someplace, and they would just stay there. People are looking for a better way of life that is more dedicated towards the community and more dedicated towards their children. And North Central Kansas is an excellent place to raise a family. That is the biggest draw out here. So housing is a fundamental component of economic development. Without housing and without good and affordable housing, you don't have an economic center. You know, we can all wish and hope that all the businesses in the world would come to our communities, but at the end of the day, if we don't have quality housing, and those businesses and those jobs just aren't going to be there. The Innovation Center program, the housing cooperative, and the loan program, I mean, the way that we talk to people about it is with a lot of excitement. A lot of people are maybe afraid to invest their own resources into building homes or duplexes or speculative homes for people. And so having some sort of partner like the Innovation Center really helps to accelerate that and take some of the risk out of it. It helps them understand that there's somebody else here that wants to share in that risk and wants to see these areas succeed. And if we don't have new homes being built, then we don't have a future for North Central Kansas. So I think this program is just head over heels, like a really important step to being a player in the community.
I'm Joe Ballman. I'm from Grinnell, Kansas. Yes, I grew up north of town, about 7 miles. It's like first thing you do is try to take care of all what's left of your belongings, you know, because